She thought it was just another blind date, a quiet evening to escape her lonely routine. The table was set for two, candles flickering, but the seat across from her stayed empty. Minutes turned into hours. Whispers filled the restaurant, and shame started to burn through her chest. Just when she was about to leave, the door opened, and two young black twins walked in, scanning the room until their eyes locked on hers. What they said next didn't just change her night. It shattered everything she thought she knew about love, race, and truth. It was a Saturday evening, the kind that promised a little hope after a long week of loneliness. Ava, a young teacher in her 30s, had finally convinced herself to try something new, a blind date her coworker had set up. She'd spent hours picking out her dress, the one her late mother said made her look confident but kind. The restaurant was elegant but welcoming, filled with laughter and the soft clinking of glasses. Ava arrived early, heart racing, replaying every encouraging text from her friend. For once, she wanted to believe love could still find her. But as she sat waiting, she couldn't help noticing the lingering stares, the kind that said she didn't quite belong in this part of town. She brushed it off, forcing a smile. After all, tonight was supposed to be special. She had no idea that before the night ended, that smile would fade, and her name would be whispered for reasons she could never have imagined. The minutes dragged on, and Ava's optimism began to fade. 10 minutes late turned into 30, then an hour. Waiters passed by with sympathetic smiles, pretending not to notice the untouched glass of water in front of her. A group at the next table whispered and chuckled, and Ava could feel the sting of embarrassment crawl up her neck. She told herself maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe there was a reason. She clung to any excuse to avoid facing the painful truth that was slowly tightening its grip around her heart. She'd been stood up. Still, she stayed. Something in her refused to give up, not tonight. She pulled out her phone to text her friend when a hush fell over the restaurant. Two young black boys, maybe 13 or 14, stepped through the door. They looked out of place in their oversized jackets and scuffed sneakers, scanning the room with a mix of determination and confusion. Conversations faded. Every pair of eyes followed them, not with curiosity but with quiet judgment. Ava's eyes met theirs for just a second. One of the boys whispered to the other. Then they both started walking toward her table. The room seemed to hold its breath. Someone at the bar muttered, "Are they lost?" Another voice added, "Wrong kind of place for kids like that." The words cut through the air like glass. Ava's heart pounded. She didn't understand why they were approaching her, but the look in their eyes wasn't random. It was purposeful. When they stopped at her table, time seemed to stretch. The older twin's hands trembled as he pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled piece of paper, folded neatly, handled with care. He placed it on the table without a word. Ava hesitated before opening it, and when she did, her breath caught. It was a receipt from the same restaurant dated weeks ago, signed with the name of the man she was supposed to meet tonight. Whispers rippled again, sharper this time. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared openly. The twins didn't move. Their faces were calm but filled with something she couldn't name. Grief, maybe, or the quiet dignity of someone used to being misunderstood. Ava wanted to ask who they were, how they knew her date, and what this was all about. But before she could speak, the older twin said in a trembling voice, "Dad apologizes for the delay." The room froze in disbelief. Ava sat still, her fingers gripping the note like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The words echoed in her mind. The waiter's stare lingered on the boys, cold and condescending. When she didn't answer fast enough, he spoke again, sharper this time. "Ma'am, if you don't know them, I'll have to ask them to leave." The twins didn't flinch. The younger one lifted his chin, eyes glistening. "He told us to find her," he said softly. He said she'd understand. But Ava didn't understand, not yet. The restaurant manager approached, his expression tight with irritation. "This isn't a place for interruptions," he said, his tone wrapped in politeness but heavy with something darker. Conversations around them grew louder, feeding on discomfort. Ava stood up, her voice trembling. "They're not causing trouble," she said. But her words only seemed to make things worse. A man at another table muttered, This is why people like that ruin good places. The boys froze, their confidence melting into fear. Ava's pulse raced, not just from shock but anger. She had seen that look before, the one that judged before listening, that condemned before knowing. The manager motioned toward the door, and the twins instinctively stepped back. "Please," Ava pleaded, "they're with me." But no one cared. The waiter's hand landed on the boy's shoulder, firm and dismissive. The older twin's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "He's gone, ma'am. Our dad. He didn't make it here. He wanted you to know he was sorry." Ava's heart shattered. The noise of the restaurant blurred into nothing. Gone. The man she had been waiting for, the man she thought had rejected her, was dead. And in this moment of loss, surrounded by strangers' judgment, she realized the truth. It wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a reflection of how the world still treated them. She turned toward the stunned faces, voice breaking. "You all saw children walk in, and you saw a threat." The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with guilt, with truth, with everything left unsaid. The restaurant never returned to its usual noise that night. The laughter that once filled the air was replaced by an uneasy quiet, the kind that follows truth when it hits too close. Ava stood there watching the twins clutch the note, unsure whether to cry, speak, or scream. The waiter had retreated, the manager avoided her eyes, and every person in that room suddenly found their reflection uncomfortable. For once, silence wasn't peace. It was guilt. She took the twins' hands and walked them out, leaving behind the whispers and the untouched dinner that no longer mattered. Outside, the cold air met her tears. She learned that their father, her blind date, had collapsed on his way to meet her. A hard-working man who never got to explain, never got to defend the color of his skin to a world already prepared to judge him. Ava didn't go home that night. She sat with the boys at a bus stop, listening to stories about their dad, the man who had loved, worked, and dreamed despite everything stacked against him. The world would remember him as a statistic, another headline lost in the noise. But to those boys, he was a hero. To Ava, he became a mirror. In the days that followed, she wrote his story online, not as a tragedy, but as a wake-up call. It spread like wildfire. People who had looked away before were forced to see. Because racism doesn't always scream. It whispers in restaurants, in glances, in silence. And sometimes it takes two brave kids and a broken heart to make the world notice. So the next time you see someone judged before they're known, ask yourself, are you the one watching quietly or the one willing to stand up and change the story?